All right, we are coming to you live from Doak Campbell Stadium and from Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Pat Burnham. I am joined by former FSU offensive lineman and college football coach Mark Salva to offer our first impressions of FSU's 38-20 win over 16th ranked Duke on Saturday night in Doak Campbell Stadium as they get ready to play. The band's getting ready to play, so we may have a little background noise here, Mark. But listen, uh, we thought this would be a good game, and it certainly was for most of the game until FSU finally got it rolling on the ground and finally stopped Duke from rushing the ball effectively. But listen, first things first, Mark, you get a win over a ranked opponent at home in convincing fashion in the second half, which as Florida State gets deeper and deeper into this season, the optics of this win are going to matter. And Mark has disappeared on me. There he is. He's back. And then, of course, you come out of this game, and FSU is the only undefeated team in conference play as Duke goes down to Florida State, obviously. And then UVA, the Cavaliers, beat North Carolina 31-27 tonight. Mark, just talk about a little bit about your overall thoughts on the game as we sit here at 11:20 on Saturday night. And we want to thank you guys, the people that are joining us for joining us this late as you make your way to your car and probably to bed after that. But Mark, what were your thoughts, just overall thoughts on the game?
Two things stick out. First of all, I love this team. You know, they have a resilience about them. The culture that Mike Norvell has established, is evident. I mean, and the second thing is what Mike's favorite word, response. Look, this game went just about like I figured it would. I mean, Duke's no joke. That's a veteran team with some really good players, especially on defense. I knew that was going to be a tough going against that defense. Their offensive line is really good.
Yeah, I thought they were very good.
They are really good. That's the best offensive line I think we've played as a group, right? And I think about response. I think about Jordan throwing the pick six, and then Deuce Spann coming right back and negating that with the kickoff return.
Yep.
I think about taking the blows, chipping away, taking control of the game, and then when it needed to be Jordan Travis time, finally we break glass in case of emergency.
Yep.
That's what Jordan Travis was. Norvell broke the glass.
Yeah, listen, -6 yards rushing for Jordan Travis in the first half. Florida State only had 38 yards rushing in the first half. And then, Mark, as you said, FSU comes back with 114 yards in the second half. Jordan had 68 himself. And it really seemed like when they got him going, they got the rest of the offensive run game going. He had 40 yards on the 96-yard drive. 40 of those yards were on his legs. We've always said that, and he had a hell of a night passing. He was 27 of 36, I believe, for 268. Jaheim Bell had a huge night. Obviously, they negated Keon to the extent that most college football programs can. I mean, he didn't really have a big game other than the 40-yard catch, but obviously Jaheim Bell was a factor. They got him the ball in the flat a bunch. They really took advantage of the seams with the tight ends early in the ball game in the first half until they got that run game going in the second half. Just talk about Jordan. We've always referred to him as a warrior, and we've always wondered when we were going to see him break out, and we haven't seen him run that effectively probably since LSU. Now, obviously, he's been banged up a little bit since the BC game, played hurt against Clemson. But just talk about a little bit about his game, and really with FSU being 7-0 and really he got the legitimate inside track at 5-0 in conference play to make it to the ACC championship game. A lot of weird things would have to happen in the interim for them not to get there as things sit today. And as you kind of view this picture from, for my case, about, 500 feet above Doak Campbell Stadium. But just talk a little bit about his performance. And, is this one of those performances that you've always talked about, Heisman moments? Is this with Florida State being 7-0 and he had his game? I mean, this was his game. He was the difference in the ball game for Florida State on offense. Just talk a little bit about Jordan.
Well, first of all, I mean, the guy's a leader, and I think that is evident. I mean, the way he's got the offense mastered, he gets people in position, he executes the offense. His throwing was much better today, I think, than it has been, throughout the year. I mean, he put in some really tight balls and tight windows and made some clutch throws when it really counted. But I think for me, we struggled to run the ball, especially early, and really throughout the year, we haven't run the ball like we thought we would. I think everybody can pretty much agree on that, especially against the tough teams. And I think that's because we're trying to preserve Jordan a little bit and not expose him too much. And so I think teams are saying, you know what, they're not going to run Jordan Travis. And so, that extra gap that you always kind of control with a running quarterback is people were kind of ignoring it. And until, like I said, until it became time that we needed to go 96, they decided, okay, it's time. We got a weapon we haven't utilized in a while. We're going to utilize it. And sure enough, pulling the ball and going around the edges, a few design runs for him really broke this thing wide open for us. And it got us the lead. And once Riley Leonard got hurt, it was over.
Did you see any difference schematically in what they did in the first half versus the second half offensively for Florida State?
No, I think, like I said, I think teams are just betting that, we're not going to run Jordan because, he's banged up, he's injured, he's whatever. And so I think people have kind of ignored that him pulling the ball. And I think, him pulling the ball here, in the second half, obviously opened up the offense. It wasn't anything really schematically they did differently. It's just it's always been there. It's been there all year. It's just now they decided to take advantage of it. We hadn't needed it to this point.
Yeah. Well, what did you see in the passing game? Jaheim Bell, 8 catches for 53 yards, 10 targets. Johnny Wilson, before he got hurt, which looked like he was concussed, to be quite honest with you. We don't know what the status is, but that's certainly what it looked like as he left the field. But 5 catches for 58 yards, Toafili 4 for 40, Keon 2 for 54. What did you see from the passing game that might have been different than what we've seen? It seems like obviously Jaheim Bell was a lot more involved.
Yeah, look, I want to relook at it and see, but it looked to me like they were really bracketing the outside guys a lot. And Johnny, with his catch radius, made some great catches, and Keon had a couple of targets and made a couple key clutch catches, but they were giving up the middle early. You saw a couple of examples of like that third receiver to whatever side, whether it was a back or a tight end, would go out and then break outside. You see the linebackers just split and run after, and they're pattern matching, and there's the other tight end or whatever, he's sitting there wide open, and they took advantage of that in the first half, and then Duke adjusted a little bit and started covering that back up again, and that kind of opened things up to the outside just here, and it opened up Jaheim Bell coming out of the backfield and a little bit. So, they did. Look, Duke's a good team. I knew they were going to cover. They were, they got a great scheme in terms of, and they're smart. I mean, they're older guys, and Elko's a defensive dude, man. The guy has a track record of being really successful, and they were going to make it hard. So that's what that was. I'll go back and look at it. That's what it looked like to me early.
Yeah. Well, as impressive as Jordan Travis was in the second half, FSU's defense was equally as impressive. Duke had 144 yards rushing in the first half, 53 in the second. Duke was 8 of 22 passing for 76 yards. Really didn't have much of a passing game with Riley Leonard, and especially early. Looked like they found something in the second half, or we're going to try to throw the ball more in the second half with Riley Leonard. Obviously, he gets sacked and hurt on the second series of the second half. But what did you see from Florida State's defense against the run in the second half? Was it better fits, better plan? What did you see there?
Yeah, I think in the first half we were really losing the edge. Verse and Peyton sticking their heads inside, and I don't know if that was a design for them to take the inside gap and maybe having a linebacker scrape outside. But Duke did a great job of setting the edge with a wing or a tight end or a lead back or something, or a crack back. Right? They did a good job of setting the edge, and we didn't do a good job defensively doing that. So the big correction there was just being a little more conscious, maybe widening the alignments a little bit, and making that edge a little better. But again, very good offensive line, man. I was impressed with the way they came out and the way they blocked. And those backs were, whew.
Well, they run very hard. Listen, I think that team plays very hard. They're as you said, they're a well coached football team. But listen, I don't remember against LSU or Clemson, and two teams that did have. Well, Clemson had a little bit of success running the ball. I don't think LSU had as much, but I don't remember the FSU defensive line getting rolled off the ball like they did early in this ball game. And I think it says a lot about them that they obviously came back and played a really good second half. And
yeah, I think that's the benefit of the rotation that we do, keeping guys fresh. I mean, even in critical moments, you saw guys that were rolled in there. You saw well, Fabian Lovett, I guess, is really the second team guy now, right? But
Yep.
you saw Turner, you saw the other defensive end, Gil Redmond, you saw those second team guys in there in critical moments, and just the commitment to rotate and keep guys fresh, late in the game, that it paid off. It paid off in the second half,
Yeah, you had Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune both had 9 tackles in this ball game. Akeem Dent 8, Jared Verse 6. Looks like Braden Fisk 5. So yeah, but listen, they did play much better in the second half. And obviously, you go to Wake Forest next. Wake Forest, I think, won today over Pitt. But how do you overcome a letdown next week after such an emotional win? Because this was not the Duke teams that we all remember from when you were in college and I was in college. This is certainly a different Duke team. What is Mike's message after this game to his ball club?
Turn on the film from last year. Turn on the film from the year before. You're right. To me, that's the motivation. I'm going to go to that game, and I am looking forward to what I hope is some, I don't want to say revenge, but maybe just to kind of make things right. Right.
And it looks like Wake's going to be down their third quarterback too.
Well, you know what? I have no sympathy. And so, yeah, I think that's all you need to do for that game. And of course, what's at stake, like you said, we're the only undefeated in the league right now. There's playoff implications, because look, right now, there's a lot of undefeated. If everything stays the same and there's 4 or 5 undefeated teams, they had us at 49% of making the playoff. They had Ohio State, Michigan 100%. They had Washington at like 90%, and then us at like 49%. So as far as that goes, if there's any hope of us making the playoff, we've got to keep winning. I don't think a one-loss FSU, just due to national perception for whatever reason, is has a chance to make the playoff.
Well, how do you think this particular win and the way they dominated the second half, how do you think that will impact how Florida State is viewed moving forward as we get into what will now be week 8 of the Florida State season?
I mean, you and I know that this was a really good Duke football team.
Yep.
But people aren't paying attention. They just say, oh, well, it's Duke, right? Notre Dame knows they're a good team. Clemson knows they're a good team. So I mean, hopefully people are paying attention to understand that this wasn't. Look, I told my wife, when this game started, if you changed uniforms, you wouldn't know, right?
Right.
Duke's that good, right? And this was a good football team. So if people are truly paying attention and understand, then it should account for a lot. But I'm not so sure, because most people say, well, it was Duke.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, Duke and North Carolina are still in second place in the ACC with 1 loss, and I'm sure there's another team with 1 loss. I've not looked at the ACC standings as of the end of the Ball game here tonight. But if you were ultimately to face Duke in the ACC championship game, how big is an advantage having an 18-point win over them if you were to meet them in Charlotte?
Well, it'll be a totally different team. I would imagine Riley Leonard's going to be 100% if it gets to that point. If they manage him the rest of the way. He wanted to get back in the game, and Elko wouldn't let him back in the game.
Yeah, I saw a long conversation between him and one of their trainers right before, really in the fourth, right? I think at the start of the fourth quarter when
they showed on TV. They showed Leonard with his helmet on, ready to get back in the game, and Elko telling him he's not going back in, and Leonard wasn't happy about it.
Well, you know what? It's probably a smart move on Elko's part, because they got a chance to see Florida State again.
Exactly. And so, this game will have very little effect because it'll be a totally different game if he's 100%. Because look, there were times in that game where he either could have pulled the ball or or pulled the ball down in a pass where, in games past we saw him run effectively, and he didn't do it because obviously he's not 100%. Yeah. So it'll be a different game as far as that goes.
Yeah.
And they know in Duke's mind, they're thinking, you know what, we had him in the ropes and we let him go, and we didn't have our best player at 100%. So they're going to come in pretty confident,
Yeah, listen, right now you got Louisville. FSU is the only team in the ACC that's played over half their conference games until maybe Clemson's game ends with Miami. But Clemson will either have 2 losses or 3 losses after this game. But you got Louisville at 3-1 in the ACC, UNC at 3-1, and now Duke at 2-1. So you got a game advantage, and there's going to be a lot of things, crazy things that can play out. I don't know if Louisville's got North Carolina or Duke left on the season, but FSU does have the inside track to the ACC championship coming out of this game with an impressive second half showing. And, all right, so I do want to talk to you about one little thing. I was watching a lot of football today and saw some curious fourth down decisions. James Franklin made one in the Ohio State game. We saw Mike Norvell went for it early in the game. I think second or third series of the ball game. FSU on its own side of the field got stuff, led to 3 Duke points to go up 10-0, make it a 2-score ball game. Obviously, we talk a little bit about revisionist history, and you and I tend to differ on that. I would not have gone for it on that fourth down. Now, it did not come back to bite them, but just your thoughts. Mike is an aggressive guy. It's not going anywhere.
It did because they got a short field and scored. They scored a field goal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, do you think that was the wise thing to do at that point in the ballgame?
I mean, conventional wisdom says no. Analytics, whatever that means.
Yeah.
That was the call, right? Now, look, the bottom line is if Biscuit doesn't get beat inside, it's a first down. And you could argue that Byers should have, slow played a little bit and maybe help support technically support the athletic gap. But bottom line is if Biscuit gets his head inside that guy, it's a first down. So, again, it's easy to criticize play calling when you know the result.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not going to beat them up for that. I'm just not. You make those decisions in real time, and if you pull it off, you're a hero. And if you don't, you're not. In this case, obviously, it didn't work out. Elko probably thought the same thing.
Yeah, they were up 20-17, I believe, when this happened. They could have kicked a field goal to make it 23-17, which would have, if Florida State had taken the next drive down and made it 24-3. Obviously, that was a huge momentum swing for Florida State, who goes 96 yards. And to be honest with you, I thought it was over once they went up 24-17 or whatever. 24-20? Yeah, it was 24-20 or 24. Yeah, 24-20. It's 24-20. So they go down, score, make it 24-20. Were you surprised that Mike Elko made that decision when they could have gone up 6, and even if Florida State scores, you're within a field goal?
So this kind of goes back to the same discussion we had last week when Mike went for it on fourth down and we didn't get it. Remember that?
Yep.
What's the worst that can happen? You get your defense against an offense that you've been pretty much stifling on the -4 yard line. They got to go 96. If you're Elko, you're thinking, okay, we might not get it, but we may get it back in good field position again, right? Because at that point, their defense was pretty salty. And, you're thinking, the strength of my team is the defense. They got to have my back on this. And so, am I surprised? I understand the thinking. Maybe he knew that the field goal wasn't going to get it done.
Right.
He's thinking, this team's got too many weapons. At some point, they're going to get a couple shots. I got to score a touchdown here.
Yeah, and that's about how it played out, because FSU, as the longer the game wore on, it became more obvious that Florida State had just too much offensive power and was playing too well on defense, particularly when the threat of any passing game went out, when Riley Leonard went out. All right, so it's late. We're not going to stay on as long as we normally do, but what are your couple of biggest takeaways out of this ball game?
We got a lot of skill players. We got a lot of weapons. And if you're going to beat this team, you got to play for 60 minutes. The culture is strong. I'm a little disappointed in the effectiveness of the offensive line early in the game. I would like for them to have really taken control, done a better job. I mean, they really were getting pushed around early, and that was a little disappointing. Now, pass protection's not bad, but I mean, in the running game, I just wish. I mean, at one point, I'm going, man, I'm jealous watching Duke push us around, and then we're getting pushed around on offense. I was going, man, I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. And listen, I thought they did a really good job pass blocking. I don't think Jordan might have been sacked once all night. Of course, now Duke does not blitz a lot; they play more coverage. But I really thought they did. I didn't think Jordan was under much pressure most of the night.
A little bit, and we're really good at picking up the blitz for the most part. So yeah, to me that might be the one thing I'm a little disappointed in. But you know what? They chipped away at it, and at the end of the game, they were very effective. They ended up doing okay. So,
all right. Do you think Duke was the team most likely to beat Florida State if there's somebody who was going to beat them on the ACC? You got you're at Wake, you're at Pitt, then you've got Miami coming to town, and that gets you to 10 games, and then you got obviously North Alabama and Florida. Is there? I mean, how do you think the rest of this schedule sets up for Florida State as they make this run, final 3 games of the ACC season?
Look, really, the only easy game we've really had was Southern Miss and Virginia Tech towards the end. I just think I'm watching Miami right now, and they just scored a 2-point conversion in the second overtime. Now Clemson gets the ball, I think. Yeah, Clemson gets the ball. So Miami's going to be a tough out. They're going to come in. We embarrassed them last year. They got a lot of pride. They got a defense that can run and hit. That's going to be a tough one. And of course, as far as the league goes, that's the one now that sits in front of us. And of course, you always got to go down in Gainesville, and that's going to be tough. It just is.
Yeah, and that obviously that game will have more impact on how Florida State is perceived for the college football playoff if it makes it undefeated into that particular ball. If they go 11-0 into Gainesville,
100%.
Yeah. 100%. All right. So listen, we're going to wrap it up. I know everybody's tired. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern if that works for you, Mark. We'll do Seminole Sidelines at 5 p.m. And
I'm watching this game tomorrow again. I want to really dig into it. So I'll be on the second watch thread tomorrow, and this is a fun game to watch. It was a ball game. I mean, this was a good game. Like I said, I love this team. I love their resilience. I love their quote unquote response in tough moments, in that they don't get down. They're very confident. I just love watching them play. And let me tell you something. The whole game, I was never, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this game. I was like, okay, let's just see how it goes. Let's just see how it goes. We keep digging away. We've been shooting ourselves in the foot. Didn't make those 4th downs, pick 6. Things weren't going exactly right. Deep down, I had confidence that they were going to get it together, and that the talent would finally, the cream rise to the top, so to speak. So I never really got whatever during the game, and that's what I love about this team.
Yeah, listen, I thought they could ever, particularly in the second half, if they could ever get up to a 2-score lead, I thought it was going to be hard for Duke to keep up with them, and that turned out to be the case. But listen, obviously it was a little nerve-wracking coming out at halftime, but Florida State put their foot down, got the job done, and is this their most impressive win of the season to you?
Yeah, I'll say impressive in that their backs were up against the wall. They had to really fight to get this one, and that's a good sign. I think LSU was impressive the way we dominated the half against a real quality opponent. But this and beating Clemson at home is no joke either. But yeah, this one was we really had to get this one out, and I knew it would be that way.
Yeah, listen, it's never a bad thing when you're sitting here 7-0 and coming off a ranked team win, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these next 3 weeks turn out. I think they'll take care of business at Wake and at Pitt, and then as you said, the Miami game is going to be the end of the ACC schedule and the game that decides really whether Florida State goes into this ACC season undefeated and gets to Charlotte with a perfect record in ACC. All right, so listen, I'm always curious about this. It has nothing to do with football. What was on the grill tonight in Nashville, Tennessee?
Tri-tip.
All right.
So I made tri-tip sliders with a tri-tip and caramelized onions with I normally do a chimichurri, but today I just did a little horseradish sauce with it. And they're pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So listen, are you bringing you're going to Wake Forest, so we're going to get to hang out in Wake Forest on Friday night, and we'll find out about the game time, and that'll kind of determine how much bourbon we get into on Friday night as we're getting ready for the game. But are you bringing your portable grill to the Wake Forest game so we can cook out and then go hang out on Snuggy Hill?
No. I'm going to leave it all to Jason Franz.
All right. Well, listen, FSU 7-0, big time win over 16th ranked Duke. They are the only undefeated team in ACC play, and one of the few. I think there's only 6 Power 5 programs now that are undefeated. I don't know. I have not seen all the West Coast scores, particularly Washington. I don't even know if they played today, but FSU is definitely one of the only 6 teams at the very most that's undefeated in the regular season. If you're not an Osceola subscriber, you enjoy our content on YouTube. First of all, subscribe to our YouTube page. You can do it right now while you're watching, if you're watching on YouTube. And please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com and check us out. We have plenty of post-game coverage. We got some news on recruiting. We got a bunch of information on who was at the game. You had Armando Blunt was here, our Miami commitment for 2025. That was a big deal. He's still committed to Miami, but in my understanding, we tried to get him to talk after the game. He did not want to talk, but we'll have some reaction from recruits later tonight in the morning, and we'll keep that up there for you. As Mark said, we will have Second Look Sunday where Mark, myself, Kurt, Nick, Bob, Jerry, we all get involved in doing our second watch and coming up with more notes on the game. We'd like to hear what you interact with us. For you to interact with us on our live thread at theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. Mark, I appreciate you staying up late with us for this, and it's always good to talk about a Florida State win, and we've talked about them a lot this year, and I have a feeling we've got 4 to 5 more coming at the very least before this regular season is over. But appreciate everybody joining us. Mark, appreciate you joining us. And as always, I'm going to let you sign us off.
Go Noles. Scalp 'em.